So at our great event at Ray's Cafe the other day, I had a listener come up to me, and he goes, Pete, you got it all wrong. And I'm like, oh, crap, here we go. He says, hey, you were talking today about how Republicans always have smaller crowds at their inaugurations than Democrats. And I said, yeah, that's true. I mean, Trump's crowd was smaller than Obama. Obama was a historic figure. But listen, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. Crowd sizes are frankly irrelevant. I mean, Trump's the only guy that's packing an arena by himself. Kamala needed Beyonce to do it. And who is it? Megan the Stallion. Don't want to forget about her in Atlanta. So they need celebrities. Trump doesn't. The Trump crowds are impressive, but in the end, it doesn't mean you're going to win an election. It means you got a great base, but you need a little more, right? So I think the whole thing is usually overblown. But he says to me, and I thought it was a fair point, he goes, hey, the reason that Republicans will typically have smaller crowds is because, well, Washington, D.C. is in the middle of a largely blue area. D.C. is obviously 90-10 blue to red, and even the surrounding areas, Northern Virginia, Maryland, I mean, these are not Republican strongholds. I said, that's true. I've always assumed it's more because Republicans are more likely to go to work and, have families and jobs and things like that. But okay, that's a good point. So he says to me, we should be able to move the inauguration around. And I said, that's a fantastic idea. Make it like the Super Bowl. Now, I understand that in today's world, there are security issues that would take place with this. But still, what if after you had your nominees in, let's say, July, August-ish, that nominee would say, if I win, this is where I want my inauguration ceremony to be. I want it to be in Kansas City at Union Station. I want it to be at Arrowhead Stadium. I want it to be on the steps of the World War I Museum and Memorial. Maybe you don't want it outdoors, but either way, you get the point. You can pick what city you want your inauguration ceremony to be in. So it's more accessible for regular Americans. Now, I know that there are hundreds of Kansans and Missourians who traveled to D.C. in the last few days to be a part of different inauguration events and balls and galas and the whole thing. Now, a lot of regular folks might have gone there just to watch the inauguration. They got shut out because it got moved indoors, which that's too bad, but that's how it goes sometimes. If you bounce it around, you suddenly are connecting with regular people. You're giving regular people an opportunity to go see a once-in-a-lifetime event. And you're also goosing the economy of that city. I mean, we talk all the time about how the Chiefs winning is good for the economy here in Kansas City. The World Cup coming to town, in the next couple of years is going to be huge for Kansas City. The NFL draft coming for the weekend a couple of years back was big for Kansas City. Imagine having an inauguration here where suddenly you are boosting the economy of a community that otherwise wouldn't get it. Instead of just pumping more money, largely government dollars, back into that swamp and hellscape that is Washington, D.C. And you would give president-elects opportunities to help out other communities. It's the same thing that was proposed during Donald Trump's first term, and then COVID happened, so this thing kind of fell by the wayside. But remember, there was a movement, and I recall Josh Hawley in Missouri playing a role in this. There was a movement to get some of the federal agencies outside of Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. Remember that? And it was like, hey, let's have the Department of Agriculture based in Kansas City. Or let's have, fill-in-the-blank agency based in somewhere else in the country. So you spread these things out around America. You connected these agencies with more everyday Americans. And I know that there are, Department of Ag people in Kansas City. There are, FBI folks here in Kansas City. But I mean, have an HQ in different cities around the country allows these other cities and towns and communities to, be a part of some of this. I think it helps the bureaucracies. And I think it helps other communities instead of having all this jam-packed in Washington, D.C. And in 2025, in a world where most people are hopping on Zoom calls, you don't need to be next door, FBI, CIA, all these different departments. You don't need to be right in each other's backyards anymore. You don't have to do it. So you spread it around. So I thought to myself, and I wanted to get to you at 913-408-7957, why not do it that way? Kind of like what you do with the Democratic National Convention and the Republican National Convention. Cities apply in that case, and then the RNC and the DNC pick where they want to go. And usually there's a political reason for why they want to be where they want to be. But if you are a president-elect, you can say, hey, I'd like my inauguration ceremonies to be in fill-in-the-blank city. J.D. Vance, if he becomes president in 2028, he could do it somewhere in Ohio, his home state. Think about what that would do for Columbus, Ohio, or Cincinnati, Ohio. That would be enormous. And the good thing, if it was in Cincinnati, it would not be conflicting with a Bengals playoff game because, well, they can't help themselves, even when they want to be good. They've got no choice. They are not going to be in the postseason, even with a really good quarterback. They can't stop anybody. So these are ways to spread this stuff outside of D.C. Have you seen the balls and the galas and the amount of money that's being pumped into D.C. right now? You go on social media. I do. I see plenty of people at these events on Facebook and X and everywhere else, Instagram. It's crazy. You would be changing the lives of small businesses in other cities around the country. It'd be huge. On the text line, 913-408-7957. The problem is all the congressmen are working even during the celebrations, Pete. They put up Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, and they voted on it while Trump was at the inaugural balls. Okay, please. Let's not make the excuse of Congress is busy working, okay? Come on. Come on. Nobody does less with more than Congress. I don't want to hear about Congress being hard at work. I don't want to hear that as an excuse. Congress can be so much more efficient. And you know what? If they're delayed by a day on confirming Marco Rubio, so be it. Come out to whatever city it is for a day, be a part of the inauguration, have a couple of parties that night, and then fly back to D.C. the next day and get back to work. That is not a good excuse for why you can't have these events somewhere else. Congress is busy working. I mean, with all due respect, that is laughable to me. Absolutely laughable. Pete, so the taxpayer would pay for travel arrangements, Secret Service for everybody, including Congress? Well, we're paying for Congress to travel to D.C., right? They don't do that out of their own pockets. So when these guys and gals are flying back from their home districts to D.C., you're paying for it anyway. So why not pay for them to go somewhere else instead? What's the big deal? You're already paying for it.
Congress can still work while we do the inauguration somewhere.
Yeah, I've no problem with that.
Yep.
Pete, I grew up in Bolivar, Missouri. What a trip it would be to have a full-blown presidential inauguration in my little bitty hometown. I don't know if Bolivar could handle it, but maybe you do it in Springfield. If, you have a president-elect from Missouri, if we get, the next Terry Truman and he or she wants to do it in a place like Springfield. Could you, the Springfield economy, they would do their revenues for 2 days, for 2 years, if they got something like that. I mean, it would be amazing. 913-408-7957. Jonathan, Kansas City. I got a minute, my man. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll try to make this quick. The reason why we have D.C. to begin with is, they didn't want any local area to hold the seat of government. And I understand your proposal. I think an objection to it would be, our centralized functions like the FBI, the Supreme Court, DOJ, all these federal agencies, you want their headquarters to be in our seat of government. You don't want to favor one state over another. I think what could happen is if you start saying, hey, we can send these agencies to different states, you're going to have states fighting over it. And, it's
what about
really ugly really fast.
What about the inauguration idea?
What's that?
What I just spent 10 minutes talking about.
Well, yeah, I understand your argument. I'm just playing the devil's advocate, and I'm saying the argument that they would say on the other side. I mean, it's the reason we have D.C. to begin with, because we don't want a state to hold the seat of government because, the only reason why we have the United States is because the states agreed to come together and they would agree big states wouldn't trump the small states. We would all come together, and no state would control any other state.
Yeah. No, I get that. If you spread them out, though, and thank you, Jonathan, if you spread them out a little bit, maybe that power consolidated in one state is no longer really an issue, right? I mean, if you had a Department of Agriculture in Kansas City, you'd have people living on both sides of the state line, theoretically. I don't think that would be a big deal. On the text line, Pete, there are so many other bigger fish to fry than where the inauguration is. I don't know. I think that bringing kids, I would totally bring my daughters to see an inauguration if it was here in Kansas City. I can't envision dragging them to D.C. The hotel rooms are a fortune, too. But I think that a lot of Americans could benefit financially and just historically from having inaugurations in their own backyard. Heck, I might even go out on a limb and say I would go to an inauguration for somebody I didn't vote for if it was more convenient for me just to see the pomp and circumstance.
Right. No, I think that's the thing. You can have it around, make it possible for citizens to attend, instead of going there. To that point, I need to go to the snack machine, but there are bigger fish to fry. There's always bigger fish to fry.
Oh, so that's true. Yeah. Yes. You can always say there are bigger fish. Yeah.
Right.
I'll let you go to the snack machine here in about 30 seconds, John.
Right.
All right?
Yep. With bigger fish to fry, I got to finish.
I know. You got to finish it up with me here, okay?